Welcome back. So eNCA's Dasen Thathiah has been following the story of two teens who were brutally killed in Creighton in KZN. The two pupils were hacked at their rental home. They were remembered by friends and family at a memorial service on Friday. Dasen joins me now live to discuss this further. Dasen, perhaps to start at the beginning, just unpack this case for us that has really also shocked South Africans and touched many.
I think just to contextualize this, I'll also mention at this point that it wasn't just that brutal slaying of those two schoolgirls that we were talking about, or the deaths that we were mourning in KZN this week. It was also Xolile Mbata, who's an MUT student, who was also killed last weekend, allegedly in a domestic dispute with a fellow student. So this past week has really been a painful one in KwaZulu-Natal. But just to zoom in on the case of the two schoolgirls in Creighton, that's Minenhle Buthelezi and Amanda Zulu. That story just didn't make sense to anyone in that community or even ourselves when we visited the area, because it was such a sad state of affairs. The reason why those girls were in that room in the first place was because they were trying to be closer to Kenyani High School. That's where they attended. Their homes are more than 20 minutes away. That's by car. So it's a very rural area, and they needed to get closer to one of the few schools that they were able to attend. A very important year as well, grade 12, for both of those pupils. And there was a family there that had put them up in a back room, allowing them to live there while they completed their grade 12. And another reason they needed to be there is because in this year, there are extra lessons that they need to attend, extra classes that mean that they get home quite late, even after the normal schooling has finished. So that's the kind of context as to why they were there. When it comes to the accused in this matter, Ferfud Zulu is his name. He shares a surname with one of the deceased, but we're told that there's no relation. He's someone that's known to many in that area. So it is definitely someone known to the girls as well. There are tales that one would hear when they go into the area of how he's known to rob certain homesteads, steal, petty crime and petty theft that he's involved in. And that's always been the case before it got to this point. And on that night, on Saturday night, that was last week, he had allegedly entered that property and first tried to cut the electricity before he made his way to the back room. And both those girls were there, Amanda Zulu and as well as Minenhle Buthelezi. And he proceeded to use an axe and he chopped both of them up. And it was in such gruesome detail that we were told the story by one of the men from that homestead, because he discovered the body later on. And one of them, and that's Amanda Zulu, was at the doorstep to that back room. And that's where she was found, presumably still alive, despite the serious injuries that she had sustained. And there were efforts then to try to rescue her, but unfortunately, they weren't able to do that. But what's also been a matter of concern is that Minenhle Buthelezi's body was found about 2 days later, about 5 kilometers away.
Yes.
Now, there are questions around how did one person take her away during that time and manage to get her to a point where he was able to dump her body in a bush. And as it stands, only one person has been arrested and appeared in court.
When we speak of Nqobile Gwala, we understood that of the charges, yes, there's a charge of murder, but also escaping lawful custody. What exactly is the story there?
Well, all of this happened on Saturday night, and the police in the area traced the suspect at the time on Sunday. So they were able to capture him on Sunday, and he was arrested. But it was during the next day that they wanted him to point out where he had allegedly dumped the other body. That's Minenhle's body. And it was during that process on Monday that he had managed to escape. The people that we'd spoken to in the area, like the councillor and others, have told us that he was shackled at that point. So despite that, he got away, some distance away, and allegedly spent the night or spent a few hours in an abandoned property or an abandoned home that was nearby. That's where he managed to hide away until police were able to track him down again and rearrest him. He appeared in court then on that same day, which was the Tuesday, with those charges that you just mentioned.
No, very unbelievable stuff. And then as for the memorial this Friday, I'm sure it was quite an emotional memorial.
I think emotional is an understatement. It was one of the most painful things that we had to endure in recent times. Just looking at the collective mourning that was going on there, because you had the pupils from the school. So these were classmates, these were friends, these were people that knew both these girls. The teachers, on the other hand, community members, elders, the families, of course, that were there as well. And all of them just remembering these girls as being such humble beings, intelligent. And, I think that speaks to them also wanting to be closer to their school to ensure that they could go to these extra lessons. So definitely girls that had bright futures ahead of them. And that came through very strongly during the memorial. Another theme that came through was that of fear, because the other girls that were in that community were now expressing anxiety. There was even a poem that one of them recited saying, what have we done now? When will we be safe? And what can be done to keep us safe? And that was something that needed or needs to be addressed as soon as possible. But let's listen to some of the tributes that were paid to the girls at that memorial that was held on
Indaba engayizwanga imithandazo yethu ngithi nina bodadewethu nihambe kahle sizonikhumbula nangona ubuhlungu sizoke simlindele nje eklasini ukuthi sizonibona kodwa mhlawumbe uNkulunkulu uzosisiza ukuthi sidlule lesimo kade belungile kuba abantu abahlekayo njalo bengenanqa namuntu kangangokuba mangabe Xabene behlathana phasi sonke sikhulume idlule into ngabashiya umqashweni ngomgqibelo umuntu ozobuya ntambama Ngababuza ngathi bona bazogoduka yini bathi bona ngeke bazi bakwazi ugoduka banewashinge eningi ngabashiya ke ngahamba ngaye ekhaya uthe ngo-8 ebusuku ezasekuthiwa ahambe besibhedlela mangibuza ukuthi kwenzakaleni wayengitshela kachazanga nganganaka ngihlamba ulimele nje hayi akanalutho emva kwaloko ekuseni mase ngithi ngiyangena kuFacebook
No, honestly, heartbreaking there, Dasen, very, very heartbreaking. So insofar as the case is concerned, what is the expectation going forward now?
Well, as I mentioned, Furfud Zulu did appear in court last week on Tuesday, but he's expected to apply for bail in this coming week. But that's just the one part of the case. I mean, that's the accused in this matter. But then there's the broader issue of what are authorities doing to deal with the fear and anxiety that exists there. Now, I must also mention that this is not a common occurrence there, but it is a problem in KZN in general. And especially when it comes to these kinds of incidents where the accused is known to the victims, it becomes a little bit more difficult, trickier for police to deal with this. So beyond just throwing extra police into the area, there need to be other measures that are taken to ensure that women feel safe. And in this week, in fact, the Community Safety MEC, Peggy Nkonyeni, as well as Nhlanhla Koza, the Social Development MEC, visited the area and addressed some of these issues with the family and with the community there in general. And one of the things that came out of this, and this is a conversation that's also been had, for example, with the councillor, is that there needs to be more participation from the communities themselves. So in simple terms, it means that if there's something going on at your neighbor's house, you can't just turn a blind eye or turn up the TV and act like it's not happening. People need to be those eyes and ears on the ground. And that's something that they want to now enforce more than ever. in areas like Creighton and in other areas, Creighton being very rural. So in that case, there are not as many police officers as you would get in cities, and that's where the community role becomes that much more important. Let's listen to what Peggy Nkonyeni had to say during that visit this week.
We have now recruited young graduates. Yesterday, we were actually welcoming them to the Department of Community Safety and Liaison. The unemployed graduates who have been trained as law graduates have now been recruited by the department together with the young unemployed researchers, because we are interested in knowing what really triggers this kind of criminality. You know, we want to have these young people who would go to deep down and investigate.
All right, Dasen, thank you very much for that broader reporting around this very, very horrific killing.